Welcome to the Damn Strong podcast. I'm your host, Bree, and I'm a full-time online fitness coach, and my passion is to educate women on all things fitness. I help women just like you step into the power of knowledge and commitment to ultimately live your best and strongest life. In this podcast, we'll talk about being damn strong in our body, mind, and life. I'll be teaching you how to navigate nutrition, strength training, and mindset challenges. So get ready to take some notes because we're building a damn strong life.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Bree, and this is the Damn Strong Podcast. It is one of the most wonderful times of the year. It is the holiday season, and so I had to post an episode on the holiday season because this is when I feel like everyone goes into a panic. Like those of you who are currently having fat loss goals, you kind of go into panic. Those of you who want to start fat loss goals, you kind of go into a panic. Those of you who are just maintaining, you kind of go into a panic because you're like, oh my gosh, I may gain weight. Like what's going on? Those of you who are just like living your life, you kind of go into a panic too. Like I feel like everyone kind of just panics over the holiday season, which makes sense. But I'm here today to help you figure out how to navigate the holiday season with your fitness goals, whatever that might be. And I'm probably heavily going to talk on fat loss because I feel like that's where most people freak out and just panic during this time. I have 6 points that I've written out that I want to go through. And I think a lot of them, there's some that goes over tracking and all that kind of stuff for sure. But I think a lot of these points can apply to, most of these points can apply to whatever your goal is, right? Whether that's just you want to eat 2 vegetables a day or you want to just go for daily walks or whatever it is. I think a lot of these can apply to a lot of different scenarios. But I'm probably going to come at this more of like a fat loss / if you're tracking, all of that kind of stuff. Let's go ahead and hop into the first point. I don't want to waste any time. I think this is going to be probably one of the most important points and biggest mentality changes that you probably need to have. I think there's a lot of, actually, I'm looking at my 6 points. There's a lot of great nuggets in here. I'm going to be honest, but this is a really, really big one. And I actually didn't come up with this saying that I'm going to say. I saw it on, if any of you guys follow Jared Hamilton, I think his Instagram handle is real Jared Hamilton. I think he posted something like a few months ago. And I was like, ooh, I say this to my clients, but putting it in this nice little phrase is a really good way to hammer it home. And so something that he said that stuck with me that I now kind of say to my clients and people who message me on Instagram is you need to recognize that these next 2 months of like November, December, these are holidays, not holiday seasons, right? A lot of you treat the holidays like a season, right? You're just like, okay, like the next 2 months, it's November, it's December. Like fat loss is not possible. Me tracking is not possible. Me being consistent at hitting all my gym days, non-existent. Like it's just not going to happen because you just see the holiday season as a season, right? You don't boil it down and strip away all the fluff to see the reality that they're just holidays. That's it. They're single days. Right. And so if I'm coming at the perspective of, I know I have people that listen from all over the world and there's a bunch of different like holidays that happen during this time. But if I'm just speaking from like, American viewpoint of like, okay, let's just say like, let's play worst case scenario. Your holiday starts Halloween. If you celebrate Halloween, October 31st, right? So you got Halloween, October 31st. That's one. Got Thanksgiving, which this year, 2023, it's going to be on the 23rd of November. Then you got Christmas. I'm gonna count the holidays. Then you got Christmas Eve on the 24th, Christmas Day on the 25th, and then you have New Year's Eve on the 31st, New Year's Day on the 1st. That is 6 days out of the next 60 days. And so too many of you are, I'm going to be out of control and this can't work and I can't do the things. You're just realizing, hey, there's just really 6 days that we need to navigate. And other than that, things can kind of go as usual on the other, 60 minus 6, 54 days, right? Now, some of you are going to be like, oh, Bree, like I have my company party and then my spouse is their company party. And then we have Friendsgiving and then we have Friendsmas. Okay, cool. Let's play devil's advocate. So we got 6 days. You got your company party, you got your spouse's company party, you got Friendsmas, you got Friendsgiving, whatever. Still, it's only 10 days out of 60. And if I really want to ramp it up, let's actually count October too. It's really 10 days out of 90. So many of you guys are so focused on how those 10 days are going to ruin all of your progress for the next 3 months. What you really need to do is actually just be like, hey, it's only 10 days. I can figure out how to navigate that. And that's a whole nother thing that we can kind of go down. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. I do kind of have a point that kind of goes into that of how navigating those, like, you could say 10 days, right? But really, life kind of presents as usual, right? Like the day before Thanksgiving, it's just a normal Wednesday. It's like Thanksgiving is just another Thursday, technically, but we add some specialness to it, right? And so we just have to remember that it's like, okay, how you view how the holiday season is for you is kind of a mindset thing. And so I think we can break it down and strip away some of the stuff and say, look, I got 10 days I got to navigate in the next 90. I can do this. So I'm going to wrap up this first point and just say, I think you need to take a step back and realize it's not that October, November, and December are these like massive months where none of your goals can happen. I think it's truly a mindset thing that you have to pull back from. Now, I understand there are exceptions to the rules, right? I have had clients where, maybe they're not from the States and they go home for 6 weeks to, I don't know, somewhere across the pond, right? Or just wherever for 6 weeks. And so for them, you know what? They're with family. They're with family they haven't seen in 5 years. This is the one Christmas time or holiday time where they're going to go take a 12-hour flight across the world and spend time with family they haven't seen in 5 years. That's obviously a different concept or different situation and perception of things. But for 99% of you guys out there, you're probably hanging out with family on Thanksgiving Day. You're probably going to hang out with family on Christmas Day and Christmas Eve. And then you're probably going to do something New Year's Eve. If we're being honest, maybe even New Year's Day. But to be honest, you're probably just going to sit at home and watch the Detroit Lions play football, right? And it's probably going to be pretty easy. So for like really playing best case scenario, it's probably only going to be really 4 days out of 90. You know what I mean? So I think we need to step back and change our viewpoint of what the holidays look like. Again, it's days, right? We can navigate those things. Okay, let's move on to the second point. So understanding and now viewing, okay, I get it. It's 3 months. I understand all that, but it's really just a few days of events that I need to navigate. Let's take time to analyze these events, right? I kind of did that for you guys a second ago, but take time to actually look at your holiday season. And kind of like I said, I do have some clients where, they're traveling across the world to go home for the holiday season. And so everyone's holiday looks a little bit different. Let's just talk about mine because I can be honest and frank about it. On this holiday season, holidays, I keep saying holiday season when I'm trying to tell you guys to focus on holidays, but whatever, during the holidays, whatever. For Thanksgiving, we're going to go to the Cowboys game this year. I'll be honest, I'm not this is if I was like in a fat loss phase. I'm going to disclaim, I'm not going to be in a fat loss phase during this time. I'm not going to track on Thanksgiving and Christmas and all that, but let me walk through why that's my decision, right? Okay, so this is the holiday season for me. Thanksgiving, we're going to go to the Cowboys game. I'll be honest, I'm not a massive fan of Thanksgiving food. And we've been to the Cowboys game before with Thanksgiving food. I'm not a massive fan of their cooking for the Thanksgiving food. So yeah, I'll probably end up getting some turkey. If the stuffing's good that year, I might get some stuffing. Like I may get a few things to enjoy, but I'm probably going to eat before the game. Just that way I'm satiated, leave a little bit of room because I know like, again, the game's going to be like 3 hours. I'm going to get hungry at some point. Focus on protein because that's a healthy habit that I do. Whether I'm tracking or not, I'm going to focus on protein. I'm just going to eat till I'm satiated and full. And then I'm just going to move on. Like it's going to be really simple. Now, if I was in a fat loss phase, I would be like, you know what? I could take two approaches. I could either say, okay, you know what? I don't really enjoy the meal at the Cowboys game. It's not that I don't enjoy it. It is good. I don't want my mom listening right now and be like, Brianna, you don't enjoy that. We go to the I love going to the Cowboys game when we go. I love it. But I'm just going to be honest that like, I much prefer my mom and my aunt's home cooked Thanksgiving food. It's much better. But if I'm being honest, if I was in a fat loss phase, if this was coming up for me in a fat loss phase, two approaches I could take. One, I could decide to not track. Recognize that is one freaking day. It's not the end of the world. I'm going to practice healthy habits. I'm going to focus on protein and getting the turkey. I am going to stop eating when I'm full and recognize I can always go back for more. I am going to probably, maybe eat something beforehand so that way I'm not starving going there and then I'm just eating food that I don't even enjoy in the first place. I'm going to go eat beforehand so I'm full. And then as I get through the game, as I get hungry, I'll focus on turkey and, probably have some mashed potatoes, serving of that and maybe some of like the vegetables and stuff like that. So it's lower calorie, can fill me up. probably drink water, Diet Coke, something 0 calorie, and navigate that. And I could honestly track. And I have some clients that are tracking on Thanksgiving because for them, they don't really do much on Thanksgiving. They don't enjoy Thanksgiving food. It just doesn't make sense for them to not track. And that's okay if that's your reality. I want you to know it's okay to track on Thanksgiving. But I also want to say it's okay to not track on Thanksgiving. That's technically my third point, but I don't want to move on. I don't want to move on to there just yet. I want to talk about your event. So that's just Thanksgiving. Christmas Eve. Again, this is coming from the viewpoint of if I was in like a calorie deficit, I need to navigate it. Christmas Eve, we go over to my parents' house. We hang out all day. And we just kind of munch on some things here and there. I could easily bring my own meals. I could bring a food scale. I could weigh everything. I could track it. Christmas Day, we have Thanksgiving food again. It's kind of a theme. We had Thanksgiving food on both days. It is more of like, we actually will get some food from like, grocery store and my mom will make some things. So it's much more enjoyable. So I probably would choose even in a fat loss phase to not track that day. Christmas has got to be by far one of my favorite days. Oh God, I love Christmas. For everything it holds special in my heart. I love Christmas. So I probably wouldn't track that day. I would just, again, stop eating when I'm full. If I want to drink alcohol, all that kind of stuff. I just enjoy that day and I just move on. And then New Year's Eve, I tend to drink on New Year's Eve as I've gotten older, probably less and less parties. And so it could just be, I don't even know what I'm doing for New Year's Eve this year, to be honest. It could be at a stage and I just stay in and we enjoy a glass of champagne at midnight and we go to bed. So in my experience of the holidays, right, if I was going to be in a fat loss phase, I would potentially not track on Thanksgiving and on Christmas Day, track on Christmas Eve, and then New Year's Eve is a toss-up. So really, I have 2 days out of 90 that I may not track my food, right? So I want you to go through your holiday season. And again, yours could look totally different. It could be that I have a couple clients who are going home for a whole week and it's this big food focused event. There's food every day. Their mom makes all their favorite meals, everything. They're not going to track during that time. Of course, they're going to practice healthy habits. We're going to try and focus on protein when we can. We're going to stop eating when we're full. We're still going to drink our water. We're going to go for walks. We're going to see if we can find a local gym that can get a day pass on. We're still practicing healthy habits, but they're not going to track. So all that to say, to wrap up this point, I want you to take time to analyze what your holidays look like, what when this is getting posted, the next 2 months, what that looks like for yourself, because what you decide to do for your goals is drastically going to depend on what this looks like for you. Again, is it really simple like mine is, where you just kind of have 1 or 2 days that you don't really track and then you just move on? Or is it like, hey, Brie, November and December, I am out of town for the whole 2 months and it's carnivals and festivals and celebration and it just doesn't make sense, right? So you need to see where on the spectrum of that you lie. So do that. Take a piece of paper, be really honest with yourself and write down all the things that you have coming up and see how you can navigate them. One other thing I want to add in too, that I actually didn't put notes on, is when you're writing down these events, I want you to rate them and put like on a scale of like 1 to 5, maybe 1 to 10 if that's easier for you, but 1 to 5 is how important they are to you. For example, I have a client who next week is going to a wedding, right? Lots of my clients, I say, go to this wedding, don't track, have a great time. But I do always ask them, is this cousin Eddie's wedding that you haven't seen in 16 years and you really could care less about this wedding? Or is it your best friend's wedding from childhood? Where on that spectrum of importance does it lie? And so for her, she's like, well, it's my fiance's like best friend's like brother's wedding. I know the food that they're catering and I don't really like that food. So she's like, it's not a huge important event to me. And so she's going to track at the wedding because one, it's not this like huge event where she feels like she needs the food to bring the full experience. And tracking may put a damper on that. She's like, I'm just going to be supportive. I don't even really like the food that's there. So I'm probably just going to try and pick like a protein option and a veggie. It just makes sense for her. So when you go through like, okay, we have Thanksgiving, we have Christmas Eve, we do Christmas Day, I do New Year's Eve, I do New Year's Day. Go through and maybe rate like the importance of those days. Maybe write out like, okay, what do we do on those days? Like New Year's Day is a big thing. But again, kind of like I said earlier, are you just, that's a holiday. But are you just sitting on the couch like watching football at home and you could just make your own meals anyways? Like go through those things in detail. Okay, I'm gonna move on for that one. this is where I guess I'll bring up actually this point. I'm going to switch 2 points. It's okay to not track on the holidays. I just want to give you that permission. I feel like a lot of times you feel guilty for not tracking on the holidays and like it's going to set you back on all this progress. It's not. It's totally okay to not track on the holidays. 90% of my clients don't track on the holidays and we make great progress through the holiday season. So just know you have to remember this is only a handful of days. What matters is those other days and what you're doing and being consistent with. So if you need permission from a coach to accept and be like, hey, I don't want to track Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, spouse's or boyfriend, whoever, company party, my company party, Friendsmas, or Friendsgiving. If there's 9-10 days you don't want to track, it is okay, right? I'm going to give you that permission right here and there. So, and just know that if I was in a deficit, there will probably be a couple days I'm not tracking that don't make sense for me to track. It's totally fine to not track. Okay. Fourth point that I want to talk about. If you are someone that's going to be either tracking on the holidays, or maybe you're not tracking, something you could consider is cycling your calories. If you don't know what cycling your calories is, I'm going to give a very quick run through of it. If you want a podcast episode on that and you'd like me to dive more in depth, honestly, I don't know if it's a full podcast episode. I don't know. Shoot me a message. I would like to know if there's a demand for that. But you could cycle your calories. What you could do is, let's say, Thanksgiving's coming up on Thursday, the 23rd this year. And you're like, you know what? I do want to track, but the foods that I have at Thanksgiving, even though I'm going to be tracking them, they're just really calorie dense foods. And it'd be really nice to have some extra wiggle room. You could cycle your calories. And what that means is that you eat a little bit, say your deficit again is 1,600 calories. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, right? The days around that Thursday, you eat at 1,500 calories. And so you're eating at 100 less than 1,600. So you take those extra calories, that's essentially 600 calories that you didn't eat throughout the week, and you put those onto Thanksgiving, right? Again, let's say you're tracking. So you are adding 600 calories to your 1,600 calorie day. And so now you go from having 1,600 calories on Thanksgiving to, I can't do the math that quick, 2,200 calories on Thanksgiving. So you're still in a deficit overall for the week if you look at your calorie average, because you're at 1,500 for 3 days, 2,200, and then 15. So it averages out still at 1,600 calories for the full week. You could cycle for that. The other thing you could do is you could cycle and still not track on Thanksgiving. I'm using Thanksgiving a lot because it's like literally around the corner. So I apologize if you don't celebrate Thanksgiving. Just apply this to any other holiday. You could cycle your calories and say, hey, you know what? I know I'm going to enjoy more food on Thanksgiving. So my normal calorie deficit is 1,600. I'm going to eat at 1,500 or maybe 1,450 or whatever that looks like for you. That let's put a little asterisk there. Don't make it drastic. If you make it drastic, it's going to be hard for you to stick to. You can lower it 100 calories, 150, maybe 200, depending on what that looks like for you. But you recognize, hey, you know what? No matter what, I'm going to be eating more calories on Thanksgiving, right? More calorie dense food. I'm going to be enjoying alcohol. Maybe you won't, maybe you will, whatever. You're going to probably have more food. So, I'm going to cycle my calories a little bit this week. So that way it offsets the extra calories that I have on that Thanksgiving date. That is very possible you could do that. That's one really good way I would say to probably navigate the holidays, is whether you decide to track or not, is eating a little bit less on the days leading up to the holiday and then maybe the days after. Again, Christmas and Thanksgiving and all those don't fall on like a Sunday. So you cycle from Monday to Saturday and then it perfectly falls on a Sunday, right? So it's probably going to be you cycle a little bit before and a little bit after, but that could be a really, really good method for you. That's something that I really enjoy doing and probably plan to do this year is, as Thanksgiving Day approaches, I'll probably eat a little bit low calories the days leading up to it. So that way I just have more calories to have me at maintenance, especially because I'm going to be reverse dieting at that point. And so my goal is it's going to be 2,000 calories when I'm reverse dieting up. And so it might be nice to be like, hey, you know what? On Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'm going to eat at 1,800 calories. So that way on Thanksgiving, I'm not going to track, but if I do 2,000 plus 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 2,000 plus 1,200 calories, that's going to be at 3,200 calories for the day. I really doubt that I'm going to consume 3,200 calories, but it could be, right? So you could consider cycling your calories for holiday events. Honestly, you can do it for any events. I think cycling calories can be helpful. Not everyone does well with cycling calories, right? Some people can take it to extremes and cycle so hard that they binge, right? But it can be a really, really great method. Okay. The next thing I want to talk about, I'm actually debating which one I want to talk about more. Let's do the next one. I want you to set realistic expectations. Okay. So you're listening to this podcast. You recognize that it's just a few days. It's holidays, not holiday seasons. You're analyzing your events. You're figuring out what's important to you. You're figuring out, okay, on this really important day, we don't really do much. It would be pretty easy for me to track. Or you know what? It is easy for me to track, but it's really important that I don't. And so you don't track. You've considered all of these things. You thought about cycling, everything. I want you to set realistic expectations for yourself. This is another big thing that you really, really need to think about. Let's take the bigger example of maybe you're traveling for 6 weeks. Again, you're one of those people where, if you're not originally from the States and you're going home to see family, and for the next 6 weeks, you're gonna be staying with family and you're not gonna be making your own food. And it's a really, really big food focused thing. Set the realistic expectation that you maybe not be losing body fat during that time, right? Or let's say you analyze your holiday season and holidays, and you come to the conclusion of wow, I have an event 2 times a week, every single week till January. You have a very busy holiday schedule, right? Maybe it'd be good for you to make the expectation of hey, you know what? I'm going to pursue fat loss, but the rate at which I achieve it might be a little bit slower, but that trade-off is worth it. So I can enjoy a little bit more calories. I can have a good time at these events. And the trade-off is I lose weight just a little bit slower, but you're still moving forward. You need to set realistic expectations for yourself. That is massive, because that's the difference between you feeling like a winner at the end of all these holidays, or you feeling like you didn't succeed, like a failure, right? At the end of all of this. So I want you to look, after you've written everything down, I want you to look at it and be like, okay, what are my goals? Right now in the moment, what do I want to achieve over the next 2 months? Okay, cool. Is that realistic for myself? After everything I wrote out and everything I listed and everything I rated, is that realistic? And it could be, yeah, it's totally realistic for you to continue on your fat loss, 100%, or maintenance or whatever it is that you're trying to pursue. But have that honest conversation with yourself to set yourself up with an actual proper viewpoint of where things should be. Last point I want to talk about. Again, it's another mindset thing. You guys know I'm just, all of this is mindset at the end of the day, right? It's really going through stuff and thinking through things. I want you to take the time. So let's actually recap a little bit. You've gone through, realized it's a holiday, not a holiday season. You've taken time to analyze your events. You've considered cycling. It's okay if you don't track. You're setting realistic expectations. I want you to look at that. I want you to sit back at this piece of paper or notes or whatever you wrote on and think, okay, this is my game plan for myself. This is what I'm going to do. Here are my expectations based off my game plan. What would 90-year-old me be really, really proud of? Right? It's totally okay if you go into Thanksgiving and Christmas tracking. I have no problem with that being one of your goals. I have clients who are going to do it. I also have who are going to track over Thanksgiving. I also have clients who are not going to track over Thanksgiving. But some of you are going to put a pressure on yourself to try to track over Thanksgiving when it's not realistic, right? And so, or it could be realistic, but what is 90-year-old you going to be proud of you doing? You need to think about that. Is 90-year-old you, and there's not a wrong answer to what I'm about to say. Is 90-year-old you going to be really, really proud that you went into Thanksgiving, you pre-tracked ahead of time, you cycled your calories that week, you enjoyed things, within your calories, and you had a good time with family, you didn't feel FOMO, and you moved on the next day? Or is 90-year-old you going to be really proud that you didn't track and didn't have this huge anxiety attack about it, and you didn't think about it all day, and you allowed yourself to enjoy the day, and you realize that one day doesn't make or break you, and that you actually were, for the first time ever, you didn't track on Thanksgiving, and you really, really enjoyed yourself, right? Neither answer is wrong, but you have to sit back and be like, okay, if 90-year-old me was to look back at the situation that I'm in and the mindset that I'm in and the process of life that I'm in, and saw what I'm planning to do on the holidays, what would 90-year-old me be proud of? And I want you to take time to think through that, because I could track, I'm not here to brag or anything, but I've tracked a lot of scenarios. If I really wanted to, I could track Thanksgiving and Christmas, but I don't want to, because the trade-off for me is not worth it. And also, I know 9-year-old me would be proud that I just chilled on the holidays and I had a great time not tracking. You can have a great time with tracking. You can also have a great time not tracking. And it depends, I think, where you are at in your journey. I think for a lot of you, you probably need to not track. But again, there are a handful of you where it's just like, it's not going to be a bother or this big ordeal if you did track. So with everything I've said here, it's a very big fat it depends, right? On how you're going to approach everything coming up. And so I hope this episode was able to give you a lot of good food for thought on how you're going to approach everything, and gave you maybe a different perspective on everything. And I hope, if this is your first time kind of hearing a lot of this perspective of things and these points, that this is honestly like the best Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day that you've ever had, because you got to change your mindset behind things. And you're looking at the cup half full versus half empty. And that's really what it is at the end of the day. The only difference between, a lot of people feeling like a failure and feeling successful is you just change your mindset. You took a step back. You were honest with yourself. You set realistic expectations, and you were able to live up to those expectations. And even if you don't, even if your game plan, let's play, you guys know I love playing like worst case scenario. Let's say your plan was to track on Thanksgiving. You're like, you know what? Me and my husband, we just stay home and we actually don't see family. We just stay home. We cook a Thanksgiving dinner. This will be so easy for me to track. That's what I'm going to do. Let's say Thanksgiving Day comes and you're like, and that you're sitting in front of your Thanksgiving dinner and you're like, I don't want to track this. That doesn't make you a failure, right? That is, if anything, very insightful that, you know what, we probably picked the wrong path. We probably shouldn't have tracked on Thanksgiving. That's okay. You learn that about you. And now next year, you get to look back at the year previous and go, you know what? I had planned to track on Thanksgiving. And when it came to it, it really wasn't worth the trade-off to me. And so I didn't. So now I know going forward, I don't want to be tracking, right? Or it could be the opposite. It could be you choose not to track. The day ends up being so easy that you're like, wow, I probably could have tracked this. And then in the future you do. It can go both ways. So I can't say absolute, like you shouldn't be tracking on the holidays, right? Everyone's holidays is going to look, different, and holidays are going to look different. All that's going to look different. But probably for most of you, it'd be a good idea if you just took a chill pill and just enjoyed the day for what it is. And then literally the next day, like after Thanksgiving, it's a Thursday and, it's Thanksgiving. And the next day, it's literally just your everyday Friday. All right. We went through a lot on this episode. As always, I hope you guys love and enjoyed the episode. If you enjoyed it, please screenshot and share to your stories. It is a free way to support the show, and I super, super appreciate it. If there's anything that was a big, like, wow, that really hit home, please shoot me a DM. As always, that I say every single episode, it is so helpful for me to hear the points that really, really stuck with you guys and things that you really, really took away. So shoot me a DM on Instagram, and I will catch you guys on the next episode. Okay, bye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Damn Strong Podcast. Show me some love by leaving a review and sharing a screenshot of this episode on your Instagram stories. Until next time, stay strong.